very welcome, Sarah, to the podcast.
Thank you. I feel very welcome.
To start, could you tell us a bit about your background and how you became the administrative head of the Clonakilty Arts Centre, and tell us about your role at the Arts Centre and what a typical workday looks like?
Okay, so I was here on work experience in secondary school
Mm-hmm.
because I knew I wanted to get into art. I just didn't know where to start because just when you spend your whole life drawing, drawing, it pretty much just puts things into just, I'm only just good at this one thing, so I might as well just, keep going with it. And was here for work experience, was pretty much on the run of the place, and pretty simple really, just sit at the computer, deal with emails, and, deal with anyone coming in and try and sell art. Because it kind of, the sales in the gallery kind of keep this place going and everything else. And yeah. And I didn't really see much of a career anywhere else, so I just stayed here.
Okay.
I was pretty safe here, and I just wanted to stay in my shell, pretty much. But ironically, this shell brought me out of it. So, yeah. Then I just stayed in touch with everything and just felt pretty comfortable. But yeah, the administration head thing it was kind of passed on my lap, really. There was another woman, Sheila. She would have been the previous administration head before me, but due to personal issues, she couldn't be here full time. So she asked, "Would you take over? Because you pretty much know the run of the place with me being here for 9 years of my life."
Yeah.
It's pretty much at the back of my hand at this stage. So that's kind of how that happened. And typical day really would be just, as I said, just sitting around, kind of doing my own artistic practice as well. So when I'm not doing stuff on the computer or setting up posters, dealing with artists for upcoming exhibitions, I just do my own art practice, which is glass painting, which is another thing that just kind of was thrown at me. And I just kept going with it, just rolling with the punches. That's pretty much it, really.
And you said there that it brought you out of your shell. How can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, that. Okay, so growing up, I was very shy, like ridiculously shy.
Okay.
Just always being anxious around people, especially as someone in the neurodiverse community. It's a lot when you struggle reading people, and so you just pretty much builds into you. You can't really trust anybody, so just kind of keep to myself. Because as I said before, like it's that kind of intense shyness is what kind of kept me apart from the rest of the community that I grew up with. And then being here, it forced me out of it because, being in a space where you have to deal with people, you have to get on with it. Now, at times it can be very detrimental to my mental health, but, just a couple of coping mechanisms later and I'm all good to go. But yeah, other than that, it's made me grow as a person. Made me grow to what I am like today.
Okay.
And I'm still more or less the same, just a bit more out there.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very
That's
good.
pretty much it, really.
And what's your favourite thing about your involvement in the Arts Centre?
Favorite thing, I suppose, would be talking to different artists, because we do get different kinds of art and artists every month, and it's nice talking with the local talent, as I call it, and then international artists as well. It also broadens my own horizons on what art could be and what it is. And yeah, it's pretty much just talking to different types of people and just booking everything, organizing everything, because I'm a very organized person.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to get this together, it was pretty easy. So thank you for that. But yeah, no, it's the organization side of things that I like, and just being able to kind of just do my thing.
Okay. It must be quite rewarding though when you see all the exhibitions coming, to fruition. It must be quite a rewarding experience.
It is. It feels great when it all comes together and it's all done. I can then relax. Yeah. No, it's great. And like that, seeing how happy the artists are with the amount of people that come up to take a look, and like showing that, like we have a comments book as well, and they get to see what people think of their work when they're not here.
Yeah.
and it's great. And it's even better when they sell as well. It's nice kind of seeing how happy they are when they do sell something up here, and it's a very rewarding thing indeed.
Okay. And why do you feel there's a critical need for a creative hub like the Clonakilty Arts Centre in a town like Clonakilty? And what benefits does it bring to the community?
It provides an alternative for people who aren't necessarily into sports because, yes, Clonakilty is a very creative town. It is a very artsy town, but it also, it prioritizes sport a tad more. And it's, when you're growing up as the weird outcast kid in the classroom, there's not a lot of safe spaces where you can actually express yourself. Whereas this, we have all sorts of options. Like we even like facilitate workshops for different activities, such as soap making and that. And it also gives kind of guidance to specifically students who do want to pursue art. So like classes like Creative Kids and the Clown School of Painting, it's a great place to start. And then we also do offer work experience as well for students in college who want to do something like this, who want to be a part of something.
Okay. And the centre offers a wide range of classes from painting to darkroom photography. How do you decide which classes to offer, and who are your typical participants?
The typical participants, it would be kids wanting a new hobby, wanting to try something, or retirees who want a hobby, or most of the retirees in town do art outside of here. It's just having a space to structure that and focus that, because it's easy to say, oh yeah, no, I'll paint that in my studio at home or whatever, you know, eventually, and then they never get around to it.
Yeah, of course.
So then it is beneficial being in a space where you're under the guise of an experienced teacher. So if you do feel lost or if you do need a helping hand, the teachers and facilitators are there. It provides options.
Okay. And the Art Centre hosts 12 exhibitions each year featuring local and international artists. What goes into planning and execution of these exhibitions, and what are you looking for when selecting artists?
So we do tend to kind of plan for the year, just get a bunch of artists in for the year. It's mostly 10 slots that we try to fill because the other 2 is taken up with James's student show and the members exhibition. And the 10 slots, we do an open call, or we do invite artists as well, but we mostly do an open call because we do want to provide opportunities for everyone to show off their work. Because when you have galleries in Cork that are very much particular about what they put in, it is nice to be able to have a space, a comfortable space where you can show off your work. And once we send out the open call, we average at about 25 to 50 applications. So trying to narrow that down to 10 is a bit tricky. So what we started doing group shows.
Okay.
So it's more or less just solo show, group show, solo, kind of trying to balance that.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when we do get applications, we do get artists with very similar bodies of work. Now, some might be stronger than others. It depends like that. I'm not a part of the selection process. That's more James's area. But like that, from what I see in the applications, because I get them and I look through them, it's very difficult to choose because you don't want, because I know it can be very debilitating to get that rejection, you know, being like, look, unfortunately, just, you know, all you can do really is just try again. Because there's only so much we can fill. And then if we do, let's just say hypothetically, if someone else was to pull out, like just go to the applications or just reach out to someone locally, look, do you have a body of work that we can fill the space? Then we do that.
Okay.
You know, we have contingencies.
So when you were saying there about the grouping of artists, so is it like artists that have maybe a similar type of work? Is that okay?
So if it's similar, or if it's another body of work that goes with it, we then merge it together, and like that, it provides an opportunity for said artists, because a lot of these artists wouldn't know each other. Like next month we have Richard Winfield and Maeve McWalters, and they don't know each other at all.
Okay.
So we introduced them because their work would be very similar in kind of the same vein of connection and just the human experience and nature. It will be. I'm actually looking forward to that one. It'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
very interesting. But yeah, it's just we want to give people an opportunity
yeah, yeah. And the most people that you can,
that
that's
we
possible.
can,
Yeah,
that we
perfect.
can facilitate.
Okay. And the Arts Centre clearly has its finger on the pulse of local talent. How do you foster those relationships and offer opportunities for people to participate, such as through the Clonakilty Arts Together?
So we have a membership.
Mm-hmm.
They pay 25 quid for to show in an exhibition at the end of the year. But we also have a studio access membership, so you pay 30 quid a month to use the workshop out back.
Okay.
So that's where I'd be chilling out. So it's more or less like booking a workshop space. It's a communal workspace basically. And the art group, it was started by Jacinta Dara, because herself and other people in the group would be in different art groups like Say Kinsale, Bandon, all of those places. And they just meet up at 11 o'clock, sit around, have tea and paint and chat.
Okay.
It's bonding with other artists and getting different experiences and that. And yeah, all we do is facilitate the space.
Okay.
Whatever happens, happens.
Okay. Okay. And you host diverse events like the Clonakilty Open Mic and Snag Notes. How important are these events for showcasing local talent and creating a vibrant cultural atmosphere?
It's pretty much just reminding everyone that Clon is a creative town.
Yeah.
That we're full of very extremely talented musicians, extremely talented artists, and it's just giving the space to show that off.
Mm-hmm.
So like you'd have different pageants or events or matches to show off how talented like these individuals are at their craft or their skill set. And we'd like to be that as well.
Okay.
Just a platform.
Okay. And all 6 of your studio spaces are currently occupied, demonstrating high demand. What are the benefits of having a dedicated studio space within the Arts Centre, and how does it foster a creative environment?
It's more or less providing a place for focus, solely for the spaces for art. So creativity must happen in this space. Yeah, because it's like I said earlier, a lot of the retirees or students that do art outside or even at home find it difficult to even start because it's your own home, you're supposed to be comfortable. Whereas with a studio space, you can focus that. You can just line it up like that.
I suppose you're coming into the space and you're coming to do art. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas if you're at home, you're probably just distracted by everything.
It's like it's like the balance of if you were working from home in a regular office job, at home you're supposed to be relaxed, you're not supposed to be at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. The centre offers workshops and everything from sound mask making to soap making. How do these diverse workshops contribute to the overall mission of the Arts Centre?
It's providing a place for creativity to grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it, really. It's like Gata Arts, they're always looking for a space to do their workshops, and we're more than happy to help.
Mm-hmm. You facilitate it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the building that houses the Arts Centre is going up for sale, creating uncertainty about the future. What are some of the challenges this presents, and what steps are you taking to secure the future of the centre?
We're reaching out to everyone that we know that would know of any property that would be available for lease or for rent, but we started off with the council, because the council they own properties in town that are vacant or are about to be vacant, and we also view this as an opportunity for a chance to grow and rebrand, because it's great where we are right now, but it is not accessible to a lot of people within the community, especially the disabled community. Like it's very taxing for footfall as well. Like we could be a lot better. Like I see this place being a lot more than it is. And like we could be bigger, more studios, just more space to grow.
It's a challenge, I suppose, but it's also a great opportunity, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. And we're working with the council,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully we will have a protocol for when it does eventually be sold.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, with the way the market is, it's going to be slow. We could be here for months. We could be here for years. We don't know.
It's the uncertainty must be difficult though, isn't it? Yeah.
Very, especially when we have a full lineup of exhibitions for the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was the hardest thing I had to do was put in a little side note for the acceptance
Yeah.
is, hey, your show might be cancelled if the building sells.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a reassurance thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not to be surprised.
Okay.
But yeah.
So working hard with the council to try and secure a new location.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Okay. Okay. And the Arts Centre is largely run by volunteers and community employment scheme workers. How crucial are these individuals to the centre's operation, and what are the rewards and challenges of working with the volunteer-based team?
Well, I suppose the rewarding part will be a part of a growing community.
Mm-hmm.
And reaching out with the local artists and just being a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then without the volunteers and CE scheme workers, we wouldn't be open.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, and painfully aware of that. But but with CE scheme workers, it's a guarantee that there is always someone here for a couple of days in the week. Whereas the volunteers, it's literally just volunteering your time and dedicating that, like as a full-time volunteer myself. Like my whole thing is I'm available.
Yeah,
I'm always available.
You must have a lot of passion though for the place. Yeah.
No, I get to do what I love, and no complaints.
Okay, very good. And looking ahead, what is your vision for the Clonakilty Arts Centre? I know you touched on it there about growing, but what are your hopes and aspirations for its future role in the community and in the broader art world?
I mean, in a sense, in an ideal world, when we get into a nice building, and like with this place, when we started here in 2012, this place was not great. And it's some bits of this building leaves very little to be desired. But look, the gallery inside and here, it shows what we can do with the space. Just give us a blank canvas and let us have it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. If we do get moved into a new building, that is the hope. That we could be bigger, more studio space, which means more room for local artists to have a local space where they can just walk into. And then printing presses and just more accessibility to different art materials and
bigger and better. So
days.
Very good. Yeah. Thanks so much, Sarah, for taking the time out to talk to us today.
No problem. Thank you.
So welcome to the podcast, Mark. What does your role at the Clonakilty Arts Centre involve, and what's a typical day like for you?
I suppose the role here is mainly keeping good stock of the place, making sure that everything's working within my capabilities to fix it. Doing places up. Since I started here, I've opened up this room, which was a storeroom. So between myself and some of the other staff, we envisaged having this as a gallery to show more work, but not only the work of a month of the general artist that would be in the main gallery, but also the work of mainly the other artists that come here on a Thursday for a Thursday group. And they've kindly allowed us to show our work in here as well, i.e. the people that work here. So I do that, and general sort of maintenance, and day to day I would just keep an eye on the place, make sure the place is clean and tidy, and that everything's running and working fine, and with Sarah as well, just to make sure that everything's going well and that we're well ahead of ourselves. And if I have spare time, then I work on my own artwork and sculpture as well. So.
Okay. And you've had a fascinating career path, transitioning from a celebrated chef working with fine porcelain and sugar to a gallery technician and artist focused on natural history. Can you tell us a little about that journey and what sparked the shift in your creative focus?
Well, I suppose it started back in the early 80s when I lived in England, in the east part of England, and there are celebrated exhibitions over there involving all aspects of catering, and which are known as a salon culinaire. So I went in and tried my hand at first at marzipan sculpture, and then sugar sculpture, which is pastillage, and subsequently over the years ended up getting 5 senior gold medals to my name. And when moving to Ireland in '93, a couple of years later, a friend of mine, she was an art critic in Dublin, said, why don't you try porcelain? So I went into that in about '95 and had a kiln and worked away on a lot of very fine pieces of natural history porcelain. So it's initially natural history, which is my first love in life, and the study of natural history. And I, with being as articulate as I was with the sugar work, I managed to get that very fine and render that down and work away on that. So yeah.
Okay. And you've achieved success in the colouring arts, winning 5 gold medals, which you've just mentioned, for your porcelain and sugar work. How do you think your experience as a chef, particularly this precision and artistry involved in those mediums, has influenced your current work in pen, acrylic and sculpture?
I would say initially discipline and patience.
I can imagine, yeah.
Which you need a lot of today on a very wet day like today. It's I think a lot of it is pre-thought and pre-planning rather than just rushing into something. It's pre-planning of what you're going to do, how you're going to execute it from start to finish. And that's initially it. And luckily enough, I've been gifted with a gift of being able to do a lot of fine art and studies of natural history work, both on paper and within the sugar as well, in the catering trade and in porcelain. And at the moment I'm working in just using air dry clay.
Okay.
So hence the mushrooms there that I've got in the case.
Very good. Yeah. And your current artwork focuses on natural history. What draws you to this subject matter, and how do you express your passion for nature through your art? Do you have specific subjects in mind?
I study not on a professional basis, but I study on an amateur basis, ornithology, marine biology, entomology, mycology, hence the mushrooms. And I've always been interested in that ever since I was very, very young. And that's the initial flame that keeps me going. And there's always something new to find out or discover in any of those aspects,
And you're lucky, I suppose, to live in West Cork, where there's so much beautiful natural history around us. Yeah.
From my house, I've got a view over flood meadows. So, and I've my back garden, I've put in a pond there several years ago. So I get a lot of natural history, a lot of birds, a lot of dragonflies, and all sorts of things around the garden. So there's always something to look at.
Yeah, of course. And with AI generating art now, how do you see this impacting the art world, both from your perspective as an artist and as someone who works in the Clonakilty Arts Centre?
AI, I mean, it's an ongoing technology which we can't stop now. We've already started it. But I'm more of a hands-on, more tactile to actually make things. And as far as art on paper is concerned, I prefer to use my own mind rather than the mind of a computer to do a lot of the work. It's very, very beneficial. I mean, I know that you can look up various different subjects and look in at various different things and the fine detail of animals, birds, insects, or whatever they're like that. So, but I don't tend to use it a lot. I tend to use my skills with a brush or a pen or my hands and just work things out that way.
Okay. And working as a gallery technician and doing maintenance, you're constantly surrounded by art. How has this daily exposure influenced your own artistic practice, both in terms of inspiration and technique? And do you feel it provides a unique perspective?
Well, certainly. The amount of people that come in, they inspire me as well. And it's lovely to be around artists and sculptors and various other people that work in the arts, because you're constantly in and out showing people around the gallery or around the shop here, and you find that you have a lot in common with a lot of other people. So it's never ending, and it's always a burning fire of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
For me, do you know?
I suppose there's that social aspect of it, which
certainly.
is very important as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And as someone who works in a gallery setting, you've had a behind-the-scenes perspective on the art world. What are some of the challenges and rewards of being part of a gallery, both from a technical and artistic point of view?
Well, I suppose I'm always learning. I mean, I'm probably not the best handyman, but I always try my best and always say, well, where there's a will, there's a way, and if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So I try and keep that. And I suppose with my 40 years catering background, it really grounds you as far as, I like to have everything just so and clean, tidy, and, look after the place there that way,
Okay, great. And for aspiring artists or chefs who might be considering a career change or a creative reinvention, what advice would you give them based on your own experience? And what are the most important things you've learned along the way?
I suppose one of the most important things that I've learnt along the way, especially going back to the catering, is calmness. To do things slowly and work through things. It's a completely different environment here to a very, very busy kitchen where you're serving, from 50 to 350 people a day, and you have to orchestrate people into different jobs and make sure that they're doing things properly. Just be calm and give people the confidence to carry on instead of, losing the plot or getting annoyed with things,
Yeah.
So I would say to do things calmly and slowly. I'm able to do that slower here than the fast madness of a very busy kitchen.
Yeah.
Whereas I taught a lot of chefs along the way, probably 300 odd chefs, but just to teach people calmly and get the point across.
Stay calm, so.
Stay calm, that's it.
Great way to end. Well, thanks very much, Mark, for your time. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Donal, welcome to the podcast. Could you start by introducing yourself and describing your role within the Arts Centre?
Okay, so I'm Donal O'Sullivan. I'm from Clonakilty, local man, and I've got two things going on. I'm a musician and a writer. As a writer, I've got 3 novels under my belt. None of them published, unfortunately, but I'm working on changing that in the last one. And I've had stories published in different journals and papers across the country, so I'm just waiting to get the big one out there. Musician, like a lot of people here in Clonakilty, musical town, guitarist, been playing for a very long time, performing for, I'd say, nearly 30 years at this stage, and playing a lot of different styles, jazz mostly in the last decade, but also kind of surf rock, and I play in a lot of different bands here, from like a jazz quartet called the Sus 4 and a surf rock band called Surfside 61. So, bit everything really,
Very good.
Also, in relation to the Arts Centre, well, I've been a music teacher here for the last couple of years. So, yeah.
You're involved in the teaching side of things. So
teaching side of things,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're clearly dedicated your life to a life in the arts. What initially drew you to this path, and what keeps you motivated to continue pursuing it?
Well, what drew me is, that's a mystery. I can't really explain that one. It's basic wiring of the brain. All I know is it's always been that way. I've always been interested in the creative lives and in composing and creating. So I can't really give you a proper answer to that one, other than it's just the way it is.
That's the answer in itself, isn't it?
It actually really is. But it's hard to kind of, it takes a long time for you to understand that that's what you want to do because of, as I'm sure we'll discuss, the sacrifices involved. So it actually is, it takes you a while before you're actually fully comfortable with that, because it's not a well-trodden path.
Okay. And the life of a musician and a writer isn't always easy, as you just touched on. What are some of the biggest challenges and sacrifices you faced while pursuing a career in the arts?
Well, look, rejection is the big one, and anyone who says otherwise is lying. You need a thick skin. It's coming at you from all sides, and you need to just keep plugging away at it and believing that, that it'll happen, or you know, that you'll. So yeah, look, you need to take skin. Rejection is the big one, but you got to stay with it. You know, the sacrifices are obvious as well. It's not lucrative. Income insecurity, the obvious stuff, but that is ultimately the big sacrifice. You're not going to, you know, a normal career. It's not a normal career. You know, you're hustling really at the end of the day, and you're spending hours and hours committed to something, and there is no financial reward for that. You know, so no obvious financial reward for that. I mean, you can get funding. It's you know, you get grants and bursaries, etc. But yeah, it's not straightforward.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah,
that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you maintain your artistic commitment and persistence in the face of obstacles or setbacks? And what strategies do you use to stay inspired and productive?
Again, the first one is a bit mysterious. I don't really know why you stay persistent. You know, you just do. It's just maybe in your, again, it's in your DNA. You just keep going, you know. I don't like to think about that one too much because just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Stay the course. Don't give up and leave it at that, you know. But what was the other part?
So what strategies do you
Oh,
use to stay
strategies, yeah.
inspired?
Strategies, as cliched as it sounds, it's all about goal setting. Really, at the beginning of the year, you say, "What can I do?" Like, set your goals. Be realistic about these goals. See, you know, can you get a story published? How many gigs do you want to do? You know, can you get this thing finished? This big project finished? Is it realistic to say I'll be finished by the summer, or should you say winter, or should you say Christmas? You know.
Yeah.
But if you don't write down like really what your targets are, it'll become confused, and by the end through the year, you won't really, you know, you'll be able to reassess when you go back and look at your goals list, and you say, okay, well, I did that and I did that. Okay, I didn't do that, you know. And you have to acknowledge. You have to kind of stay positive as well by acknowledging what you actually did do. You know, because there's no point if you got obsessed over the things that you were trying to do, the goals that you were setting, and you came back and looked at them, you'd just be depressed.
Yeah.
Because you'd see what you didn't do. You know, but you have to say, okay, well, you know, I did that. So it's yeah, that's really it. You know, be clear about your objectives. That's what I say to myself. Anyway.
When you're in a kind of creative life, just maybe keeping focused on some goals is helpful. Is it just to keep you going through the year?
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then,
I mean, it's no different than anything. I mean, I'm always saying this, like, despite the kind of stereotypes out there, you have to be as diligent about it as you would in any other walk of life. You know, you have to hit your targets. Like.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, people might find out odd to say in that context, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's the strategy.
So you're also involved in teaching and sharing your knowledge with others. What are some of the key principles or methods you employ in your teaching practice?
Obviously, you have to teach the cornerstones and the rudiments. So we're talking music now. So you have to teach the core rudiments and you know, the ground rules. But you know, there is a lot of room for flexibility as well because every student is different. You know, some want to embrace theory, so you have to be up on that as well to make sure that you can transmit that. Others, they just want to know what's going on in what they're hearing on the radio. You know, that's so you can always demystify is the way I think of it. Like you know, I say to them all, you know, this stuff that you hear on the radio, this is actually what's happening, and sometimes it's very, very easy. So. Very easy to explain and easy for them to get. And one of the core principles is that basically anybody can be taught or can learn. I mean, how proficient they become or how advanced they become is down to themselves. But like anybody can learn.
Great,
you know?
that's hope for me, yes.
There is, especially adults. Adults are the ones that think that they can't, you know?
Yeah.
And because people would send me WhatsApp videos of them, you know, performing a song or whatever, you know, which happened recently. You know, and that would not have happened 2 years ago. You know? So it's a combination of just you know, not thinking that it's so complicated that it's beyond reach for people. It actually can be taught, you know, and can be learned.
Okay. And what do you hope your students take away from your classes or workshops, both in terms of skills and a deeper understanding of the arts?
Well, I mean, it's like I said earlier. I just want them to have some kind of core understanding that. About music is not I mean, it's not as complex as it initially sounds, you know. I mean, that's even something that I realize even as you go along, you know. Sometimes you know, you used to go, oh, right, okay, that wasn't as complex as I thought. Yeah, just to have some core understanding of things like structure and some you know, scales and keys, and some, just to have an understanding of the basics, but then be able to tailor that then to themselves, you know. Yeah. So, and have a kind of I know it's a bit of a cliche, but have a bit of a holistic approach, like, because like, and bringing in other things like sport and all this kind of stuff. It's all kind of linked up. So, you know, just like sport requires training and requires doing drills and dedication, so does learning an instrument, you know, all that kind of stuff.
I suppose if you teach the basics, you know, to, like, say, a child or whatever, there's always that potential of them coming back later on in life, you know, that if you just plant that little seed, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Because you say, what you want is that child, say, they give up at 14 or something like that. But then in 20 years' time, they might pick it up and they might play. All they need is 3 chords, right? 3 chords and the truth, you know? So that they'll still be able to pick it up 20 years later and go, well, I know my D, my G, and my A. So they might make some kind of crack at accompanying in a session, learning a song, or, you know. Yeah, so, you know, just it's a tool to make your life better. And then if you want to take it further and be a professional musician, we could talk about that, like, you know.
Okay. And how did education influence your own work, and what do you think makes a great teacher?
Well, I actually laugh sometimes because I think I bring my approach is very similar to the approach of the people who I learned from. Like, you know, so I had a couple of really good you know, music, guitar teachers who ran their own private tuition businesses out of their own homes, and it was, you know, and I, you know, everything from here in Clon, and when I lived abroad, I just seemed to be able to root these guys out, like, you know. But you know, I mean, so people that were respectful, and you know, not saying that we were like, you know, friendships or anything like that, or but just there was respect, and there was you know, having a bit of crack in the class as well, and not taking it too seriously, but also knowing what you needed to do. But yeah, like, I mean, I've been lucky. I've had some brilliant teachers. Like, you know, when I lived here in Clon, and then when I lived in France, I studied flamenco guitar for a few years, and in France and in Spain, in Granada in Spain, I had some great teachers, like, you know.
So they've kind of shaped the way you've now
They definitely shaped the way my approach to teaching. Because I do laugh sometimes, because I'm basically repeating things that were said to me when I was a kid.
It's like with your parents, where you think, oh, I'll never be like my parents, and then you turn into them.
You go, oh my God, what did I just say?
Exactly, yeah. So could you describe your artistic style, both in terms of your music and writing, and what form does that style typically take in terms of genre, lyrical content, or musical arrangements? And how would you characterize your specific approach to the creative process in each discipline? Are there any particular techniques or philosophies that guide you when you're composing a song versus writing or prose?
Well, let's see now. That was a long one. For I can describe my style, I suppose, my approach, because they're very different, the two of them. Writing is realism, in all kinds of different settings, but exploring core human emotion and motive and psychology, and how just real life setting, real life scenarios, and but maybe in unusual settings. But, like, for example, my most recent work is a historical biblical setting, but rather than hearing about these stories, which are always told in transcendental, divine, unusual ways, think about what if these characters were real people, you know, and driven by various you know, quirks and idiosyncrasies and emotional lives and various motives, and with qualities and shortcomings, you know, like real people, you know, which is, so it's I suppose it's quite psychological, you know. And music I don't really compose, you know, as such. Like, I'm just more of a kind of a gun for hire. I'll play for different things, but I mean, when you play jazz, you have to improvise a lot, so you just work at that, like, you know, you just study. The other thing about the approach is that people tend to forget that, like, you have to, like, learn how to edit and learn how to abandon ideas, because everyone thinks, oh, I have loads of ideas, but they forget they have to do the work, you know. So you commit yourself to one, and you spew out as many as much crap as you have, and then edit it and refine it later.
Yeah.
You know, it's all that's where the quality comes from.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
the diamond is somewhere in the stone. You got to chisel
yeah,
out the
yeah,
stone.
yeah. You just have to fine tune it down a little bit, maybe.
Exactly,
Okay.
but don't be afraid to spew out
Yeah, all the stuff.
all
yeah,
the stuff,
yeah.
and then come back to it, like
Yeah.
you know, work away.
Where do you find inspiration for your work? Are there any particular artists or writers or musicians who've had a significant influence on you?
Well, sure, yeah, there's loads. It's a long list.
Long
like, you
list,
know.
yeah.
But yeah, you know, musically, you're talking about really strong, uncompromising artists like Kate Bush and Tom Waits and all these people. You know, like flamenco would be Paco de Lucia, Vicente Amigor, you know, players like that. You know, I like you know, a lot of people. I like people like painters, the lives of painters like Cézanne, you know, slow burners like Cézanne, or else just people who just kind of burn hard, you know, the whole time, like Picasso.
Yeah.
So it's varied, you know, but it's really, really varied. But I just like strong, uncompromising, original artists, you know. But there's a lot of people coming up even today. They're not getting as much exposure as they used to. It used to be a lot easier before, but now anyone kind of emerging, you know, there's so many great kind of artists and musicians coming out of Ireland, like, you know, Rachel Lavelle and Orla Gartland and the band Soda Blonde and Fontaines DC, and you know, you got to look for them as well.
Yeah.
You know, you got to find them. You got to commit yourself to find them. But they are there.
There, yeah.
You're just not going to. They just won't be shown to you. You know.
Okay. And what advice would you give to aspiring musicians or writers who are just starting out or who are struggling to find their own voice?
You know, feel the pain, but keep going for it.
Yeah.
Get used to the struggle.
Yeah.
You know, get used to the low income. You know, get a thick skin. No harm in having a bit of a support network. You know, people who obviously are experiencing the same as you. That's basically it, really. They're kind of.
It's hard, but is it worth it, do you think?
Well, it is worth it. Yeah, it is worth
Yeah.
it. Yeah, definitely. But otherwise, you know, it wouldn't happen. No, it's worth it, and it will be worth it. You know, it's worth it when you get the success, or you know, when either you get published, or for example, you know, in my case, if I find myself I'm on, like if I get published or nominated for something, or someone shows interest in your work, or else if you know, you're on stage playing with somebody who you've always looked up to, and suddenly you're deemed good enough to be able to support them on stage or something like that. If you get validation, you know, then it makes it worthwhile. Like, but you just have to get used to the pain and the struggle. Yeah.
And looking back on your journey so far, what are you most proud of, and what are your hopes for the future?
Most proud of anything that's come out with my name on it. Like, I really hope to get some other stuff out there, you know, and so you know, I have a couple of really big goals that I want, and I'm not changing now, you know, so and you know, you want to be sorry, the other thing about my advice for the other people coming up is obviously you're gonna have to get a part-time job, right? So you're gonna have to make sure you use your time really, really well, and that when you're not working, that you have to make the most of the time that you got, and don't let it slide.
Okay.
But the hopes for the future, just like continue to try and hit the goals that I've set myself every year, like, so, you know, get work out there with my name on it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Keep going, so.
Basically.
That's great. Thanks so much for your time, Joel.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So you're very welcome to the podcast, James.
Thank you very much.
For those unfamiliar with your work, could you give us a brief introduction to yourself and your artistic journey?
Yes, my name is James Waller. I'm an artist from Australia. I moved here in 2014, and I'm working in a kind of neo-Baroque style. So it's looking at the work of painters such as Rembrandt and Caravaggio, and bringing that into a contemporary context. And I'd see myself as part of a whole revival in realism that's been going on over the last couple of decades.
Okay. And how did you come to be the director of the Arts Centre?
I wouldn't say the director. we have a board of directors.
Okay.
I'm one of 4.
Okay.
And it just happens that I have a studio here as well, so I'm always here. So I have probably the most to do with our CE team and volunteers.
Okay. And tell us about your role so here within the Arts Centre and what a typical workday looks like.
Right, so I give direction and guidance along with the other directors to our CE scheme team and our volunteers. And at this stage, things are very much set up. Like it's a very smooth operation. So there's not that much intervention required, but with the kind of structure we've got, what I've found is necessary is to provide some vision and some clear structures. So when something like the sale of the building we're in comes up, we need to kind of scramble, get our heads together and see what is the best way forward. So that's kind of my role, is looking ahead, thinking of ideas, how we can expand on what we're doing, how we can grow and mature as an organisation, how we can get better at what we're doing.
Okay. So you've lived and worked in both Australia and Ireland. What initially drew you to relocate to West Cork, and how has that impacted your art?
That's a big life story. So I guess my father's from Britain. I grew up in Australia. I've always had the British passport and always wanted to use it. And the relationship I was in ended, and I thought this is a great time for a big change. And I had friends already here in Clonakilty that I knew from Melbourne. So I went on a 3-month trip around Europe and I ended up here and thought, wow, this would be an easy place for me to relocate to, if anywhere in Europe. So I went back to Australia for 9 months and then came back to live.
Okay. And your work, you spoke about it there briefly, it's largely figurative, which can be seen in the many beautiful pieces on display in your exhibition. What draws you to figurative painting, especially in our increasingly abstract and digital world?
Well, first of all, I assume you mean the art world. Yeah. And I would say that probably the opposite is true.
Okay.
What we're seeing is a big movement back towards figuration across the board. And, you know, why that happens is that, well, the figure and the abstract void are two sides of the same coin. You can't stay in the void for too long. It's too hard a place to be in. And when you stop and think about it, the visual arts, at least in the Western world, it's the only one of the arts that actually left the figure behind. You think of theatre, you think of film, think of opera, think of dance, any of the other art forms. Like the person is front and centre. You wouldn't dream of having that. Well, you could have some very experimental theatre without people in it. I don't think you'd have much of an audience. And so I think there is a natural inclination for people to want to, artists in particular, to want to trace life, to want to feel the contours of life, to want to get to know life through coming to know its shape, coming to know its contour. And after half a century or more of art schools and big art institutions like museums being in the grip of a really conceptual ideology, I think we're seeing a big rejection of that from a lot of younger artists, particularly in the States and also in Europe. You're seeing a big resurgence, like Barcelona at the moment, I would say, is a centre for that. Just in the last 10 years, you've got the Barcelona Academy forming, you've got the Museum of European Art in Barcelona being established, and that has become a major centre for realist painting and sculpture. And that's all coming from the Florence Academy, and these academies are based on 19th century French Academy models. And it's all about getting back to the fundamentals of how we cognize, how we see and shape what we see and what we experience in the world around us. So it's really exciting to see that shift, and it's happened not through the system, but as a counter to the established system.
Okay.
So it's very much a counterculture. The university art schools have not changed.
Mm-hmm.
What we're seeing is a rebirth of academy models that aren't affiliated with the art schools. And that's really important because, and I know this having gone through a university art school and teaching people who are seeking some training who are currently at university art schools, that one of the biggest mistakes that happened to art schools through the 20th century in the Western world was their amalgamation with universities. And I say that because the academic model of assessment is intrinsically foreign and alien to the studio model for development.
Okay.
Like they're just not compatible.
Yeah.
They are only compatible if you make conceptual art the ideology. So hopefully we're starting to see that breaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're an art columnist with the West Cork People, and in several of articles you highlight the importance of fostering community through art. In your opinion, why are art centres so crucial in regional areas like West Cork, and what role do they play in fostering creativity and community?
Well, I'd say they're as important as the sports facilities that you find in every town. It's like not everyone's a sportsman. It's like you've obviously got all your creative people, and they need somewhere to really develop and really reflect. The other aspect of that is that an arts centre is really a crucible for forging identity as a community. It's where you see and hear and listen to all the stories that are being created in the community reflected. And that's where the community can come and reflect upon those things. So I think that plays that's how you create a culture, particularly if we're talking about a visual culture. You need that platform, that viewing platform, that platform for people to come and create in as well, to feel free that they can do that, for that culture to thrive and grow. Otherwise, you start having shutdowns. Like we need things to open up rather than close.
Yeah.
So it's vital in that respect.
Okay. West Cork is known for its vibrant art scene, but artist-run spaces often face unique challenges. What are some of the vulnerabilities you've observed, and how can these spaces be better supported?
It's funny, wherever I've been, artist-run initiatives are always vulnerable. And I saw that in Melbourne. I was part of 2 artist organisations in Melbourne. And one of the biggest dangers is burnout. So what we're very conscious of here is not trying to do too much. We're putting on 12 exhibitions a year. Running a gallery, just doing that is enough. Also facilitating studios and events. So it's a lot to begin with. The main vulnerabilities we're finding in West Cork at the moment is building sales and market forces. Like we've got in Skull, the Blue House Gallery, its building is up for sale. So they're just hanging on there. In Ballydehob, we've got Working Artist Studios, husband and wife team. They're doing fantastic, they're doing great. Again, they would be vulnerable to the market. Then you've got Knockbui in Union Hall, and that's a little bit different. It's philanthropic, it's owned by the family, and that's more stable. But when we see 2 out of those, out of that group under threat of sale, and with no immediate alternative, then you're suddenly looking at the visual arts infrastructure in all of West Cork is suddenly looking very vulnerable. It's like if those go, then the places that artists can exhibit in and work in are diminishing. And that's a trend that I've seen since I moved here in 2014, that there are no longer any professional art dealers. that I know of in all of Cork County. Like the professional galleries have gone. What we've got are the artist collectives, or the artist-run spaces. So even there, with those, to get professional representation as a professional artist, you need to look to Dublin or Galway, because there isn't even an art dealer in Cork City.
Yeah.
So that's where I started ringing alarm bells with Cork County Council. I'm like, well, look, if you're going to continue to have a vibrant visual arts culture here, then some kind of intervention needs to take place, because as an organisation, we can't compete in that market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really it's a push and pull between the capitalist forces and what the society wants, what the society needs. Like, where do you intervene? Where does government intervene?
Okay. And as an artist working in a more rural area, what are some of the specific difficulties that you face, and what do you think are the differences between operating an art gallery in an urban city area versus a rural area like West Cork?
Yeah, very good question. For myself, lack of models. It's a small town.
Yeah.
Of course, you've got a smaller pool of people to work with in terms of running classes, if that's what you're doing. The biggest thing probably here that you don't get in, say, a big city is the galleries. The opportunities to show and promote your work are greatly diminished. So you have to do a lot more work to get yourself out there. And it's like, if you're just relying on the local scene, then you're never really going to grow professionally. So you really do need to do a lot of work to get out there. On the other hand, I've found here personally that I've been able to make work that I wouldn't have made in Melbourne, where I was coming from. And it's given me, I live out of town, 10 kilometres out of town with my partner, and there's just a lot of peace. Even here in Clonakilty, you've got the peace, you've got the space, you've got the headspace. And that's why artists and writers, musicians love West Cork.
Yeah,
because they've got that. So it's like you trade one for the other, but then you've got to work hard to get it all out there.
I suppose then the rural scene, it makes them even more important. Community centres, even more important, like in an area like this.
That's right, because it's easy for people to get isolated, and isolation and depression is a danger in a rural setting. And I've worked with people and I've talked with people who have just needed to get away from the farm or away from their hideaway in the countryside, just to circulate. So in that sense, finding a space, whether it's here or the tech college or wherever, joining in on a class or taking part in a members exhibition, that really enables them to lift their own life in a way. Yeah.
And the supporting of local artists and cultural organisations is obviously very important to you. What are some underappreciated ways that individuals, businesses and government agencies contribute to the growth and sustainability of the West Cork art scene?
Well, I think we need to really foster a culture of collecting art. I think that's a very young culture in Ireland. It's like Ireland's got a great depth in literature and music and everything, but when it comes to collecting art, I don't think that culture's very old. So I saw recently that the director of the Lavitt Gallery gave a talk on art collecting. I think that's very timely. So getting businesses involved in a philanthropic sense, in a collecting sense, that's hugely important. For the local council and government, it's really about having a conversation with them and trying to provide a little bit of direction in both ways, so that they can see what is needed actually. And like one of our initiatives here is to begin a permanent art collection for the town.
Okay.
And we've got the seeds of that but we don't necessarily have the space to show it. So we've just only in the last week formed a collaboration with the Green Dot Cafe down the road, and they are now showing several works from our permanent collection. So that is one way we envisage like having a mobile permanent gallery through the town, even as an art trail with participating businesses.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. We really want to encourage, we've got a friend of the gallery stream where people can join up for $50 a year, and all that money goes into purchasing work from exhibiting artists for that collection.
And what is, in your opinion, is the role of the local art centres and galleries should play in an area like West Cork?
It plays a role in education. It plays a role in kind of mental health, I guess. It plays a role in helping artists develop their work, giving artists space to create, but also to communicate with other artists. And that's how a lot of ideas start fostering. And it's also how we don't feel alone.
Yeah.
So it's like, for all of those things, it's even we had two exhibition openings so far this year have brought together a lot of people. In January, we always have a student exhibition, and it's adults and juniors. So it's kids as young as 9 and, seniors as well, coming together in a multi-generational show. And I can't think of a better way to illustrate how that brings community together and helps kind of foster, identity and all those things.
So thinking specifically about Clonakilty, what would it take to make it a town known for its art?
Well, it's already very well known for its guitar festival. For the visual arts, people who are here still don't know where the Arts Centre is. So I think one of the biggest shifts that needs to happen here is for us to, whether through the council or through our own means, find a space that is more visible, that has ground floor accessibility, that is wheelchair accessible, that has a much more attractive ground floor opening that you can see into. We don't have any of that, yet still we have incredible demand for what we're doing. There's over 50 artists a year showing in the gallery between all the group shows. There's 90 students a week coming through accessing classes. So even with those disadvantages, we're still seeing a high need for the services. But to become more visible and for Clonakilty to become more known for its arts, the Arts Centre itself needs to be a higher profile building. It needs to be integrated into a greater plan for the town. Because we know the town's projected to grow to 20,000, not sure what it is now. But with its population growth, obviously the services need to grow with it. And I think as there are empty council-owned buildings on Kent Street, there's a golden opportunity there for local groups and council to get together and form a more exciting, dynamic vision for the future of that part of the town, which is dead in its centre.
Front and centre. So.
Front and centre, not dead.
Great. Well, thank you so much, James, for chatting us today.
You're very
and
welcome.
for all
Thank
your
you.
other people that work here. They're very kind with their time. If you want to hear any more about James and the Art Centre here, you can find me on corkcreative.ie.
That's great. Thank you for having
Thanks
us.
so much. Thank you. That's great.